The tragic case of Kayleigh Slusher. Napa, California, was a town known for its scenic vineyards and peaceful atmosphere. But on February 1, 2014, the community was shaken to its core when the frozen body of 3-year-old Kayleigh Slusher was discovered in an apartment on the outskirts of the city. What followed was an investigation that unearthed a horrifying case of abuse, neglect, and murder that would haunt all who came across it. Kayleigh Slusher. Born in 2010, Kayleigh was a bright and loving child with a contagious smile. Despite her difficult upbringing, she remained full of life, finding joy in simple things like stuffed animals, coloring books, and playing at the park. Those who knew her described her as a sweet, affectionate little girl who deserved a life filled with love and care. Sarah Lynn Kruger. Born in the late 1980s, Sarah Kruger had a troubled upbringing marked by instability. She grew up in a fractured home, frequently moving between relatives and foster care. As a teenager, she struggled with drug abuse and turbulent relationships. When she became a mother to Kayleigh, she initially tried to provide for her but soon fell back into destructive habits, prioritizing drugs and toxic relationships over her daughter's well-being. Ryan Scott Warner. Warner was a drifter with a criminal history, including drug-related offenses and domestic violence. He met Kruger in 2013, and their relationship quickly became toxic. Both heavily used methamphetamine, and Warner's violent tendencies intensified. Despite his troubled past, Kruger allowed him into her home and life, making him a central figure in the tragedy that would soon unfold. For weeks before her tragic death, Kayleigh's neighbors had noticed disturbing changes in the once bubbly and energetic toddler. Her normally bright smile had faded, replaced by a look of exhaustion and fear. Some reported seeing bruises on her delicate frame, and others observed that she appeared malnourished. Concerned, Kayleigh's maternal grandmother made several calls to the police, alerting them to the troubling conditions in the household. However, nothing substantial was done to remove the child from her home. Unbeknownst to many, Kayleigh was trapped in a cycle of abuse inflicted by the two people who were supposed to protect her the most, her own mother, Sarah Lynn Kruger, and Kruger's boyfriend, Ryan Scott Warner. On the night of January 30, 2014, at around 8 p.m., neighbors recalled hearing muffled screams from inside the apartment. A loud thud was also reported but dismissed as routine noise in the apartment complex. Inside, however, a horrific scene was unfolding. "Stop crying." Warner's voice echoed through the small apartment, his patience long gone. "I didn't do anything," Kayleigh whimpered, her tiny frame shaking. Kruger, her own mother, did nothing. Instead, she watched as Warner grabbed the little girl and threw her onto the bed with force. Kayleigh let out a small cry before falling silent, the air knocked from her lungs. Her body trembled in pain, a searing sensation radiating from her stomach where the fatal blow had landed. At approximately 2 a.m., Kruger nudged Kayleigh, but she did not respond. "She's not breathing," Kruger muttered, her voice unsteady. Panic set in, but not for Kayleigh's well-being. Instead of calling for help, they made a chilling decision. They placed her small, lifeless body into their apartment's freezer. "She'll be fine. No one will know," Warner said, his voice eerily calm. January 31, 2014. The next day, Kruger and Warner acted as if nothing had happened. Neighbors saw them leaving their apartment around noon, appearing calm and indifferent. They visited a local store and used their government benefits card to buy food and cigarettes. Meanwhile, Kayleigh's tiny body remained in their bedroom, partially frozen, covered with a blanket as if she were sleeping. By the afternoon of February 1, 2014, a friend of the couple, suspicious of their behavior, stopped by their apartment. As he stepped inside, a cold shiver ran down his spine. Something felt off. "Where's Kayleigh?" he asked, scanning the cluttered living room. "She's sleeping," Kruger replied too quickly, avoiding his gaze. He walked into the bedroom and felt his stomach drop. There, lying still under a blanket, was Kayleigh. He reached out and touched her tiny hand, ice cold. "This isn't right," he muttered, his voice shaking. "You need to call the police." When they refused, he took matters into his own hands and alerted the authorities. At 3 p.m., Napa police officers arrived at the apartment. The sight that greeted them was harrowing, Kayleigh's fragile body, stiff and unresponsive. Officers noted the disturbing temperature of her body, confirming she had been frozen. The apartment itself was filthy, with drug paraphernalia scattered around. Kruger and Warner were nowhere to be found. Realizing their crime had been exposed, Kruger and Warner fled the scene around 10 a.m., hours before police arrived. For over 24 hours, they evaded capture, attempting to disappear into the crowded streets of Northern California. At 8:30 a.m. on February 2, 2014, an alert diner called 911 after spotting their photos in the news. Realizing they had been recognized, the pair quickly exited the restaurant and headed toward the nearby BART station, hoping to escape. "We have to go," Warner hissed, gripping Kruger's arm. "We'll figure this out," she mumbled, her face pale. But it was too late. Officers swiftly apprehended them at 9 a.m. at the El Cerrito BART station, bringing their desperate flight to an end. On May 30, 2017, after a grueling trial, both Kruger and Warner were found guilty of first-degree murder with the special circumstance of torture. Prosecutors presented overwhelming evidence of prolonged abuse, detailing the 41 distinguishable injuries on Kayleigh's small body. The jury listened in horror as medical experts described the unimaginable suffering she endured. Deputy District Attorney Keisha Lind, who fought tirelessly for justice, described the case as one of the most disturbing she had ever encountered. "It wasn't a quick process," she stated. "She suffered immensely before she died." The conviction brought some measure of closure to those who had mourned for Kayleigh, but it did little to erase the horror of her final days. Her story became a tragic reminder of the vulnerabilities of children in unsafe homes and the need for stronger protective measures. Kayleigh Slusher's death sent shockwaves through the Napa community and beyond. Advocacy groups rallied for better intervention in child abuse cases, and her name became a symbol for those fighting to protect children from similar fates. A memorial was set up in her honor, a solemn space where those who loved her could remember the joyful little girl whose life was stolen far too soon. Though justice was served, the pain of Kayleigh's loss remains. Her story stands as a heartbreaking example of the darkness that can exist behind closed doors, and a call to action to ensure that no child suffers the same fate again. As the years passed, Kayleigh's memory lived on through candlelight vigils, community discussions, and efforts to improve child welfare systems. Family and friends held on to their fond memories of her, sharing stories of her laughter and innocence before her life was tragically cut short. In Napa, where the tragedy unfolded, residents continued to push for systemic changes, urging lawmakers and officials to take action against child abuse. The case also led to increased scrutiny on how social services handle abuse reports, emphasizing the importance of timely interventions to prevent such heartbreaking outcomes. While nothing could undo the pain inflicted upon Kayleigh, her story serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance, compassion, and the collective responsibility society holds in protecting its most vulnerable members. The fight for justice does not end with the conviction of those responsible, it continues with every effort to prevent another innocent life from suffering the same fate.
Oh, I'm speechless right now and shaking, so I just can't right now. It's too much.
I feel sorry for her and her family and all the kids who knew her around here, just everyone who's felt this loss. All children are sacred to everyone in this world, and for a mother to do this to a child, she doesn't deserve to be called a mom. She's a monster. I can't imagine anybody, let alone a mother, letting this happen.
She deserves a lot more than this, but this is all our little community can do for her.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome content.